Welcome back to 10-Minute Prophecy, where we go through the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation verse by verse in bite-sized chunks. We hope that this journey through Bible prophecy has been enlightening, whether you are new to prophecy or have studied prophecy in the past. As always, if you haven't seen the previous presentations, please watch them as each prophecy builds on each other. The link to our playlist is down in the description below. You will also find the non-denominational biblical prophetic interpretation method that has proven itself over and over again in world events, both past, present, and can be relied upon to understand the future. See the link in the description below. Just as a recap, the first two trumpets were the prophecy of the judgments of God on the Roman Empire's land and sea power, and now we will see continued judgments in the next trumpets. In verses 10 and 11, we find a third devastating power that God prophesies will give God's judgment against the Roman Empire. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Hear the languages of a meteor flashing across the night sky. This describes a leader or power that would appear suddenly like a bright star, and then vanish as quickly as it came, as if extinguished by the waters. The destructive path of this meteor would primarily sweep across areas rich in rivers and springs. The effect would be like poisoning the water, causing widespread death and devastation along the rivers and streams, as if a dark, destructive force had tainted the very lifeblood of the land. This third trumpet refers to Attila the Hun and his conquests against the Roman Empire. This description in Scripture accurately describes Attila himself, who saw himself as a servant of Mars, the god of war. He dressed himself in striking and brilliant armor and clothing. This made his appearance more dazzling, as his followers claimed. Here, Scripture mentions the impact on the rivers and the fountains of waters, which is the life stream of a country. This shows where Attila specifically targeted. His invasions focused on the Alps and the areas where the rivers flow into Italy. This caused him to conquer vast stretches of Europe, from the Black Sea to the Adriatic, devastating everything in its path. The Scripture also calls the star Wormwood. This emphasizes the effect that Attila would have on the hearts of the people. Wormwood symbolizes the suffering and terror he caused, as his name alone struck fear into the hearts of people. Attila called himself the Scourge of God, a title reflecting the ruthless destruction he unleashed. One of his lieutenants nearly wiped out the Burgundians along the Rhine, leaving a trail of death and misery, including the brutal torture and execution of hundreds of young women. The horror was so widespread that Attila boasted that the grass would never grow again where his army had passed. As Attila ravaged the Roman Empire, the emperor and the people of Rome begged for Attila's mercy. Eventually, the emperor sent Pope Leo I and two high-ranking officials and made peace with Attila. Just as the Bible describes, Attila's rule was short and brilliant, and he died in 453 after a few short years of devastating military conquest. So now the three trumpets have sounded, and God's judgments have fallen on the land, sea, and the waters, representing the three areas which gave Rome its prosperity. Now the next judgment is about to fall. Verse 12 now states, "And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise." Here the language shows that the sun, moon, and stars would be extinguished. In the Roman Empire, what did the sun, moon, and stars represent? In Roman political life, the emperor was known as the sun, the consulate, the moon, and the stars represented the Senate. Here the biblical language is clear and prophesies judgment against the final power in Rome, which is the government of Rome. The final emperor of Rome, Romulus, was named Augustulus, which means diminutive Augustus. This was a derogatory name which he lived up to. Augustulus contributed to his downfall. He, after a short reign, resigned to the Senate, and the Senate accepted this in a final act of loyalty. After this, they tried to continue the spirit of Roman freedom and constitutional form, but this did not last. The Senate sent a letter agreeing unanimously to Emperor Zeno, the son-in-law and successor of Leo, who had recently been restored to the Byzantine throne after a brief rebellion, declaring that they did not want, or even desire, to continue the imperial succession in Italy. They stated one emperor could rule and protect both the East and West, and they agreed, on behalf of the people, to transfer the seat of empire from Rome to Constantinople. Thus, they gave up the right to choose their own ruler, the last remaining symbol of their once great authority. Thus, the power and glory of Rome over any nation came to an end. Only the name of Rome remained, while all signs of imperial rule vanished from the city. Rome, once the ruler of nations, now sat in ruin like a second Babylon. There was no throne where the Caesars had reigned. They requested that Odoacer be made governor of Rome and Italy and the official end of the imperial line in Italy. After this, Theodoric the Ostrogoth swiftly took the throne in Rome by conquest on March 5th, 493. The Eastern Emperor, with reluctance and ambiguity, approved of the rule. The imperial power of Rome, whether centered in Rome or Constantinople, was no longer recognized in Italy. The last flicker of Roman imperial authority was gone, and now a Gothic king sat on the throne of Rome. Although the power of the Roman Empire in the city of Rome was effectively over, symbolized by the third part of the sun being smitten, the legacy of Rome still lingered in the Western Empire for a while longer, even amidst the Gothic rule. The consulship and the Senate, referred to here as the moon and the stars, were not abolished by Theodoric. In fact, a Gothic historian praised Theodoric's consulship as the pinnacle of earthly power, comparing it to the moon, which still shines in the night after the sun has set. Instead of dismantling the office, Theodoric himself expressed admiration for those who held the consulship, calling them the annual favourites of fortune, who got to enjoy the grandeur of the throne without the burdens that came with it. As prophecy stated, the consulship and Senate of Rome eventually met their end, but not at the hands of the Vandals or Goths. The next major shift in Italy came under the command of Belisarius, the general of Justinian, the Eastern Roman Emperor. Belisarius showed no hesitation in eliminating what the barbarians had left untouched. The consular office ended in the 13th year of Justinian's reign. This pleased Justinian's authoritarian nature, as it removed a title that reminded Romans of their lost freedom. With the fall of these institutions, it was as if the third part of the sun, the moon, and the stars had been struck down. In the political world of ancient Rome, the emperorship, the consulate, and the Senate had once shone like the sun, moon, and stars. As the empire declined, the once glorious institutions of Rome were gradually extinguished. By the time the fourth trumpet sounds, we see the end of the Roman Senate, once the heart of the empire, now gone. Finally, Rome, once the ruler of the world, fell to Narses, a eunuch general and successor of Belisarius. In 552, Narses defeated the Goths, conquered Rome, and sealed the fate of the Senate. Finally, verse 13, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound. Here an angel who is separate from the angels holding the trumpets announces three additional woes added to the last three trumpets, signifying that these last trumpets are worse compared to the previous trumpets. Each woe corresponds to its trumpet, starting with the fifth trumpet going all the way to the seventh trumpet. This ends the judgments against the Western Roman Empire. This concludes our time together. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this nugget of prophecy. Join us next time as we continue on the seven trumpets in the book of Revelation, chapter 9. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and don't forget to like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you again soon.